Hi, my name is Erin Mayo, and I'm a member of the National Center for Learning Disabilities Young Adult Leadership Council.
Hi, I'm Leah Beatty, and I am also a member of the National Center for Learning Disabilities Young Adult Leadership Council. And today we are interviewing Lindsay Jones, the CEO. And yeah, hi, Lindsay.
Hi, guys. I'm excited to be here with you. I'm Lindsay Jones, the CEO of NCLD.
Lindsay, I've heard a lot about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act in the news recently and from NCLD. Could you give us a really quick overview of what the IDEA is?
Absolutely. The IDEA is a federal law that passed in 1975. Before 1975, students with disabilities in many states were prohibited from going to public school. Seems crazy as we sit here today, right? Seems crazy. How could we prohibit them? But they were. So Congress, the federal law was passed by Congress in 1975 to say all public schools have to be open to all kids with disabilities. IDEA is the law that protects the rights of children with disabilities in our public schools and gives them the right to a free, appropriate public education alongside all of their peers. Really specifically, I just want to say in your life, it would be things you'd notice like it's the school taking steps to identify you as a person with a disability. It's specialized instruction that you'd receive from your teachers. And it's the ability for your parents and yourself, your parents to consent to your services in your education, yourself to be a part of meetings about that education. So if you or anyone you know had something called an IEP, which is an individualized education program, where your parents were meeting with the school, you were hopefully meeting with the school as well, that was a symbol of your rights being protected under IDEA.
Okay, so I understand what IDEA is, but why is it important right now? What is happening?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what isn't happening? Well, what isn't happening is everything normal right now, right? What an unbelievable, unprecedented time we're in as we face this pandemic. And one of the biggest parts of that is that children are not in school right now in all 50 states. All 50 states have closed their schools, but children are still receiving education services. And IDEA still protects the rights of children with disabilities. You might have heard Congress passed a piece of legislation in response to the pandemic. It's called the CARES Act. That's a huge piece of legislation. It's addressing unemployment, health care, loans to small businesses. It's addressing a lot of things. But one very important component for IDEA and for this conversation is that it has also addressed education. And specifically, it did something that we're concerned about. Congress in that law directed the Secretary of Education to come back to Congress with her recommendation about whether we would need to waive part of IDEA. That means whether schools would not be responsible for implementing parts of IDEA. As we've said, IDEA provides civil rights. It is a civil rights law. So the idea that we would use this moment of an unprecedented national crisis as the time to waive rights under IDEA or any civil rights is it's an unprecedented move. It's very concerning to us. And so that's why we're really focused on it right now. We're working with the Department of Education with other groups to determine what's going to happen when she reports back. We firmly believe we don't need to waive any of those rights.
Yeah, so, we're in such a privileged time where, we understand, or at least, those of us who have been supported by IEPs and other various accommodations that have been, instated because of IDEA, what's incentivizing a school principal or superintendent wanting to have these waivers? And could you tell us why the Secretary of Education would want to request these waivers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one in our nation is experiencing school in a normal way, right? Everyone, whether you're a person with a disability or not, if you're in school, you're at home. my son's taking Zoom classes from his school, right? As many kids are. Some kids aren't getting any services at all. So the entire environment is very challenging right now. We believe there's a lot of ways to be flexible with IDEA. There are lots of flexibilities in the law, but there are some of the requirements of the law which are pretty specific around some timelines. There are some requirements that schools are concerned about whether they'll be able to meet during this time of crisis and social distancing. We are seeing at NCLD really great stories across the nation of teachers and others working really hard to get kids educated with disabilities, kids who receive one-on-one services. Some of you might have gotten those. You might have sat with a reading teacher one-on-one for some of your education. You might have been moved out to a small group in your classroom to work with other kids on reading. We're seeing teachers and educators around the nation really step up in some creative and innovative ways to deliver those services. But schools are concerned that they won't be able to provide them. And there is the right under IDEA for parents to file state complaints or to sue schools if they disagree with services or the services in their IEP are not delivered. So that is the tension kind of that schools are facing. And that's why they are asking for waivers. We believe we don't need to waive those rights. We can be flexible with the law the way it is. Nothing is normal right now. Everyone's doing their best. So we're highlighting a lot of examples of how educators can do that because we hope educators will learn from each other. I mean, I've never social distanced knowingly, I guess, in my life, right? We're all just figuring it out. Here we are on Zoom having this, which we might have done before, but now we must do. So in the same spirit of us being here and the way we've all had to change our lives, we think educators are doing great things and we want to lift them up and we don't need to waive IDEA.
Great. So how does this impact others out there who may be watching or listening to this conversation?
It impacts you, Erin. It impacts you, Leah. It impacts all of us in the movement for 1 in 5 and all that we do to support students with learning and attention issues and all students with disabilities. If you're a current K-12 student, if you're in high school, if you're in elementary school, it affects you directly if you receive services. These waivers really could stop you from receiving the services and accommodations that you need to learn. And so it's important to say, we're ready to be flexible, but we want to we have rights to these and we should still be receiving an education alongside our peers, meaning in each of our homes. If you're in college, you might have had an IEP and those services, and you benefited hopefully from those accommodations and from the specialized instruction you received. And this is a pay it forward, pay it back kind of thing. We don't want to set a precedent where a time like this means we waive those rights. We're all impacted by this action. And so I actually want to turn this back to you guys. I feel like I'm doing all the talking, you guys. I hope I've been able to answer some of your questions, but I want to ask you, if one of you would talk about it. How have you been impacted by IDEA? What's your experience been?
Yeah, Lindsay. So I was enrolled in early intervention as I didn't talk until I was 3 years old. I was fortunate to have really amazing educators to support me on my IEP through my junior year of high school to support and provide me accommodations that I utilized throughout graduate school as well. My educators really knew that my LD was just one kind of aspect of who I am and that it wouldn't define my success.
I think that's so important. It's one part of you. It's an integral part of you, but it's just one part, right? We're all complicated people. And it sounds like, you really benefit from IDEA. All of us, I'm going to be technical and wonky. You benefited from IDEA Part C in early intervention. You benefited from Part B through K-12, right? And some of those transition services into college. So you're a great example of how IDEA is meaningful and it allowed you to become the person you are, which is so great to hear. So I'm ready to tell you, help us. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I have one last question for you, Lindsay.
Yeah.
What can folks do now to make sure these students and our civil rights aren't at risk?
What a great question. Thank you, Leah. The first thing, you guys know this, I want you to tell everybody in your social networks this, right? You must write your member of Congress and tell them no IDEA waiver. Use our website. It's easy. Hit the take action button wherever you see it on our site, and it's going to take you to this. Tell your friends and family. They need to speak out. This is important. Those services help. Kids need them, and we should be doing our best to make sure that they get them. Share with us, as Erin just did, why IDEA matters to you. We need to lift up the good work that happens because of this law and the way that it really enhances and it changes lives. If you're a parent, an educator, a young adult, or someone who just is a fellow traveler for the cause, we would love it if you would film yourself on video, post it to your social media under a hashtag MyIDEA Matters. If you tag NCLD, we'll retweet it, we'll share your post. We want everyone to see how important it is and how many lives it's touched. They must know that it's important for the 1 in 5 who have learning and attention issues and all students with disabilities. I'm so excited to see, even though we are miles apart, 6 feet apart at least, our community, our movement is coming together right now, standing as one. And I am, from my home, I'm going to wall film videos. I'm excited to see everybody and share all of their stories and hear the many ways that IDEA has helped your lives and why it's important.
Thank you for sharing with us, Lindsay.
Thank you.